till the 10th of February on these flight duty time limitations norms. As a citizen of this country, I would just want to ask one basic question. If relaxed till the 10th of February, when the government has mandated it, the court has said go ahead, it's been a 2-year period. So then how is that not the fundamental
staff that they are arm twisting DGCA into policies that suit them and not implementing the orders of the High Court as well as the new norms? This is what market share and flights, over 2,000 flights, almost a month. That is what will happen. Any disruption to that or any accountability sought arm twist the government into policies that suit them the most. So that is what really impacts me, and that is what affects me, and that is what triggering me to raise this issue, to make the government realize controls the skies of India.
Let's talk about the politics of it also, the fact and the logistics also. The timeline. Priyanka, today is Friday. Second half is a private member's bill. For important discussions. In the midst of that, you have a very stark comment that has come in from the leader of opposition, politicizing this. When do you see the minister making a Congress's side?
I would have hoped that the minister would have yesterday itself, considering this issue began 2 days ago, that he at the top of things. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. For me, it's not about politics. It's about the people of this country who are suffering the entire cost of this entire goes on to show that the last priority for all, whether the airline or the government right now, seems to be the Indian citizens, these domestic passengers who had important flights to take. Accountability from the government.
Priyanka, we're going to be tracking what you're doing. Good job trying to get this into Parliament. This is something we completely agree with you, needs to be discussed, and we hope it gets taken up. A break out of our Indigo coverage for just a moment, guys, because the ceremonies for President Vladimir Putin have begun at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. The ceremonial night yesterday, what incredible images, and today a foggy morning in the national capital begins. Let's just get some sound in from outside the Rashtrapati Bhavan. You can see Dr. who've gathered in the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, the presidential house, for the ceremonial welcome of the Russian president. It's a long day today. Had a pretty extended dinner last night. It lasted a couple of hours at least. Padmaja, me and Vishnu were here till incredible images from the airport to the two leaders riding in that Toyota. Modi Toyota.
Talk about the theories.
We must talk about the theories.
No, but I have something to say.
MH number plate, by the way.
No, the Prime Minister travels on Range Rovers very often.
Yeah.
Now, Putin got it all wrong.
Yeah, but they're not built here.
No, and there were
It's an Indian company.
There were actual
globalization.
There were actual memes about how people now gone up. So who knows, these little gestures and the kind of effect that they have. So people often quibble about
a Tata, by the way.
I do drive a Tata, but that's a very different.
If a Toyota Fortuner goes up or down, I won't be able to afford it either way. So let's put that part aside. But
this is fake news, by the way. But carry on.
I'm going to say that this is an incredibly important moment. The mood has been set. the images and the virality of what we saw yesterday was not
Prime Minister receiving President Putin, when that news came out that it's now Prime Minister's protocol that has been set in motion there, I think the mood was set from that very moment. Where they had that 45-minute off-script discussion, closed door. And I think that is what they carried forward yesterday as well. 3 hours private dinner diplomacy. The mood has been set, and that is what they're going to carry forward today.
You know, another interesting thing that happened yesterday in that private dinner that the two leaders had, the Prime Minister himself. Interesting story. Do you know in 2011 there was a case in Russia where they had asked for a ban on the Bhagavad Gita. It had been called militant literature. So the court, of course, shot down that plea, but from then, 2011 to 2025, where the president of Russia was gifted such literature, of course, the symbolism, the you know, differentiating between right and wrong. So again, like we spoke about the car, the number plates, the symbolism therein, again, why gift a Russian version?
That is there where you have, you know, also Russia is one of those places where you have a lot of Hindi and Sanskrit being spoken, that entire Eastern Europe. Both Sanskrit as well as Hindi, and which is why the Russian version of the Bhagavad Gita just fit in completely, both from the optics point of view and the cultural path.
We've got Hyderabad House at this stage. Now, after all of the events over here in the forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan, we'll see the President and the Prime Minister travelling to Hyderabad. All about Aditya, what's on the agenda?
Well, yes, we're reporting right outside the Hyderabad House in an hour. Pointed out how there was a lot of color, a lot of vibrance in the tone that was set yesterday between Modi and Putin. The gesture by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to receive Putin at the for very special friends and strategic partners of India. And that, of course, includes now the Russian President Vladimir Putin. And this comes at a time when a lot of discussion tariffs certainly also being spoken about. But all the attention now at the Rashtrapati Bhavan, where the ceremonial welcome of the Russian President Putin will be happening. Business delegation along with the defense minister also. So what's on agenda is trade, how trade could be taken to another level, and of course the defense partnership share. Minister's pet project, and that's what will be discussed in detail. So this comes at a time when there's been global uncertainty, there's been a deeply divided world. Was given yesterday by Prime Minister Modi as a gift, as a special gesture to President Putin. Now that book is from the ISKCON, and ISKCON has predominantly played a very significant role in we had a lot of Indians stranded there. So the Indian government was working night and day as part of that operation. And then we had, of course, ISKCON and other such groups helping out. So that was an incredible moment. Of course, the ceremonial welcome. And finally, from there, the president would be moving to Rajghat, where he would be laying wreath at the, Father of Nations memorial. I'm standing just meters away from Hyderabad House. In about 30 to 45 minutes, I'll be entering Hyderabad House as well. And soon after the bilateral 23rd, summit meeting, but that last evening, both these leaders sat together for 3 hours. And as Gauri was mentioning, we had that incredible moment in Tianjin as well, where both these leaders were inside the car for 45 minutes or so discussing global issues. And that happened yesterday also, from the airport to the Prime Minister's residence at 7 Lok Kalyan Marg. And of course, there would be a lot of discussions around how the trade can be taken to another level, fertilizers, the auto industry, and of course, space, high-tech, and other fields also, where there has been a lot of progress that has been made. But trade, crude oil, and defense partnership
Aditya,
is perhaps the top agenda, the top priorities that would be discussed here right
Aditya,
behind.
it's a very large contingent that President Putin has come with, is traveling with, and a lot of it is trade. So, keeping in mind the global optics, also the global realities in which this meeting is taking place, this visit is taking place, there's a lot of focus on trade as far as this summit is concerned.
Well, absolutely. Trade is the top agenda, and trade has been the top agenda since the tariffs of Donald Trump really have been making news over the last 10 months or so, ever since he took office for the second time as the US president. Now, India has also about 25 to 50% tariffs that have been slapped against us. And this comes at a time when also the Quad meeting is not happening right now. It has unofficially being postponed, no official statement yet on the Quad meeting. Of course, US President Donald Trump was also supposed to visit India. That also clearly is not happening. But the Russian president is here in New Delhi. It's not just symbolic. It's a huge message also. On part of the Russians, it would be a message against the Western sanctions, against the kind of diplomacy that has happened from the Western side. And on the other hand, of course, it would also signify the close brotherly cooperation and friendship between Moscow and New Delhi. So trade would be at the forefront, as would be defense cooperation.
The trade imbalance between India and Russia makes this something that the two countries have a very, very long runway on. And that's the reason why it's front and center, like you and like Gauri, like you and Aditya are saying very clearly. But before we bring our guests on board, guys, and we've got a long day of coverage here on NDTV, I want to remind our viewers for a moment. I have no doubt in my mind that NDTV viewers soaked in those images yesterday, but those live pictures on our screen, plus I want to show you what captured everyone's imagination yesterday. These are the defining pictures from last night before we go to our guests. Let's put those on our screens right now. The pictures of the Prime Minister along with Putin at the Prime Minister's house, the gifting of that Bhagavad Gita, the two leaders in the car, which I am told by our social media team is the most shared image of the week. It'll probably break some kind of record because, that image of the two, that picture of the two in the car has gone completely viral. Gauri, you were in Tianjin when, they rode in the car together a few months ago in September. So 2 rides in 1 year is something of a record for both these leaders, I think. But incredible images. The mood has definitely been set. And that's the reason why I think the 23rd India-Russia summit that kicks off very shortly is so exciting. So let's go back to those live pictures. Welcoming onto our coverage this morning, Shishir Priyadarshi, President of the Chintan Research Foundation, Harsh V. Pant, Vice President of the Observer Research Foundation, Dr. Siddharth Raimedi is a fellow with CSDR, and we'll be joined in a short while also by Maxim Kuznetsov, Chairman of the Russia-Asia Business Council. Shishir, I want to kick things off with you. Mood set, like we've been saying. Much to talk about, much to close, much to discuss. Everything's looking good for India and Russia this morning.
A very good morning. A very good morning. And yes, look, it's as upbeat as it could possibly be. It's been a phenomenal start yesterday. I did a quick run through to some of the international reporting. And I think, Prime Minister Modi's receiving of President Putin, which global media, at least a lot of the Middle East media, is highlighting as something very special. So I think the mood's set. But what's also important, perhaps in the context of what, this little exchange you and Gauri were having on trade, there is a somber reality underneath it. Not only is trade important, and not only because of this huge trade deficit we have with Russia, these discussions are important. But don't forget that this is taking place at the backdrop of a hugely weakened World Trade Organization. Earlier, even if you did have a global geoeconomic crisis, there was a bulwark of predictability and certainty that the institution, the WTO, did provide. Because, there were bound rates, there were schedules that countries couldn't breach. But the way President Trump has completely thrown the WTO rule book out of the window, I think all it means is that bilateral discussions, like the kind that India and Russia are having, will need to have, become even more important.
Harsh, the pictures that we saw yesterday of the Russian president getting into Prime Minister Modi's car, in fact, that has become a rage because people are talking about how he perhaps is the man who has made car selfies a trend. He was earlier with Benjamin Netanyahu. He was there with the Australian Prime Minister. He shared that car selfie with Barack Obama as well. Why are these optics important?
Let's take that across to Dr. Raimedi, who's with us at this stage. The optics of the car, it's been very much a talking point. He wasn't in a UK manufactured Range Rover. He was in a Japanese
Toyota,
right? But probably made in India. But still, go ahead.
I think the optics is pretty on point and effective because it does show that the two leaders have a special chemistry vis-a-vis each other. That, to use a word, they really have a mutual vibe towards each other. And so even if there is a lot of uncertainty, turmoil, turbulence, adjustments in geopolitics, India-Russia relations, when the two leaders meet in person, as a viewer, you can always see that they are capable of having a special rapport. They are capable of having frank, honest conversations as leaders who have high mutual regard for each other.
I think that is something that isn't stressed enough because, when you talk about leaders meeting, it is about every handshake, every move, the body language, the ease with which the two leaders are able to spend hours with each other. I think that is something that really is the hallmark of the Modi-Putin relationship. Siddharth?
Yes, indeed. And I think recently we also saw some pictures going viral about how Prime Minister Modi was part of Prime Minister Vajpayee's entourage back in 2002. And so Prime Minister Modi has definitely observed, perhaps admired Putin as a strongman leader of Russia since more than 2 decades, right? And again, the two leaders are, we have to remember, at present, some of the longest serving leaders in world politics.
Sure. Maxim Kuznetsov also with us, the chairperson of the Russia-Asia Business Council. Mr. Kuznetsov, thanks very much for being with us. The two leaders meet at Bharat Mandapam later on in the day. That's where the summit, the business summit, takes place. What are your expectations?
So, my expectation is that Russia and India will discuss key question of bilateral trade, including trade in oil, during pressure of third countries like as US and EU. We will discuss deepening cooperation in some fields like as nuclear, atomic energy, like as space cooperation, like as cooperation in weapon machinery, and also we can discuss de-dollarization and trade in national currencies.
This picture that we were talking about, I just want to show it to our viewers. It's quite interesting. The man who made car selfies iconic. So this was the picture where, and again, it's also about breaking protocol. We spoke about it at length yesterday. The fact, even though some Russian outlets claim that President Putin had no idea about that, he was suddenly taken aback when he saw the Prime Minister there on the red carpet. But you go out of your way in a time when everyone's, dug in their heels, they've got their backs up, everyone seems to be talking at each other. Here is somebody who is trying to engage equally with all countries, Shishir Priyadarshi, and these small gestures go a long way because you're saying, hey, listen, there is no need to be so antagonistic. We may have competing claims over things. We may have all our interests not converging at all times, but I'm willing to give a little.
Look, you actually said something straight from my heart. Two things. If any global leader today is going to the White House, there is a certain amount of, natural apprehension what may come about of that conversation. The conversations could go anywhere. And completely to the contrary, a global leader comes to India and he's at least assured of a great deal of warmth, respect, and honor from the entire Indian government. And Prime Minister Modi leads that. He makes, obviously with Vladimir Putin, he has this amazing personal relationship, goes back a long, long time. But even to a leader where he would not have had it. And I think this is that big difference that India has shown to the world of friendship, of holding hands right through difficult times. But the second point that you just raised, I think, is very, very important. Two sides, and obviously a lot of work is done at the senior bureaucratic level also. When a lot of two countries meet, there is often holding back your cards fairly till the last minute. You negotiate, sometimes peripherally, bit on the core, and it's only at the last minute that you tend to reveal it. I think one big advantage of trust that we have with the Russians is that you start from the first day and the first hour itself. So it's very easy for India to go across and say, look, we want your oil, but these are the pressures we're facing. It's very easy for India to say, we want your defense equipment, but we do not want to be over-dependent. And Russia understands. And I think that is why this summit and the expectations from what will come about at the midday conference is huge.
There's a picture that's going viral right now that Padmaja just shared with us, which is fabulous. The man who made car selfies iconic. This is the kind of stuff that citizens are going to take home with them while they're watching coverage, because these are the pictures that everyone's looking at very closely. A picture of Modi with Putin. There's one with Netanyahu, one with Obama, and one with Keir Starmer in those pictures. Incredible pictures. Taking the whole carpool aesthetic to a new political and global level. I don't know how many more pictures like this there are or there will be, but these four pictures telling their own story, Padmaja.
Absolutely, and it keeps evolving. I remember from 2014, there used to be this entire collage of the Prime Minister receiving dignitaries and the hugs that used to happen, Vishnu. So that became a thing, whether it's going to be just a handshake, whether it's going to be a
diplomacy has made way for
huggy days are over, and that's what you're telling us.
I really wish you wouldn't call it huggy days, but sure. So it started with a diplomacy, and now it's turned into these car selfies.
Car selfies, yes.
And we just had Mr. Priyadarshi say that a lot of people would say, diplomacy is very serious business, but it is these little things, these small touches which go a long way, which, set you apart and say it's not just about, suits and ties, it's also about that personal touch when you want to break through, things which are not entirely pleasant.
And this is a visit that is being watched from Washington to Brussels to London to Paris, everywhere. And when these images come out, they also send a message that, you want to talk about oil, but we talk about it on our terms. Don't talk down to us about how India needs to decide its foreign policy and national interest and energy security. I think that's the second message that these pictures send out.
So guys, the Prime Minister's cavalcade, we're told, is headed towards the President's house now. So he will be arriving momentarily. Security arrangements are in place. The Prime Minister arrives. Then the guest of honor, of course, arrives, and the President herself will be there. There will be a ceremonial tri-services guard of honor. Very, very elaborate ceremony and ritual in the wonderful large forecourt of the Rashtrapati Bhavan right atop Raisina Hill in central Delhi. This is, of course, an honor that is extended to all visiting heads of state, and President Vladimir Putin, who was interviewed, by the way, by Vishnu way back in 2002, his first ever interview to an Indian network. That's gone separately viral, I'm told, because of how young Vishnu looks and how.
Are you suggesting? What are you suggesting?
Vishnu and both Vishnu and Vladimir Putin have preserved their youth. Let me go ahead and say that, because it is fabulous how these two men don't seem to age. The Russian president may have lost a little bit of hair,
I've gained a lot of weight.
It's the same.
NDTV's
That's why they say you lose some, you gain some.
Vishnu's hair's got a little grey, but he still looks very much the same.
When I was trying to
Definitely sounds the same.
when I was trying to convince the Russians to give me the interview, I said both your president and I are still working in the same place.
Tell us, Vishnu, what is he like in person? Because a lot of people, I mean, obviously, 99.9% of the people in the world haven't met him, but there's so much myth-making about the kind of person he is. When you met him, what was it like? What is he like in person?
Firstly, he speaks English. Number two, when he shakes your hands stand shook. All right, but let's come back to that thought. The Range Rover is back shift, but I presume that's what our Prime Minister is in today.
Yeah.
And and you know, the Russian president will be on his beast, I'm pretty sure. Which is a term for what the US president operates, their limousine, but this is, so he operates a Russian variant of that, not
What's
of
the
that.
difference between the two beasts?
No, both of them are heavily armored. Both of them have secure transport, secure communications. Both of them are IED resistant to a certain extent.
Or communication, they would
NDC, nuclear, biological or chemical warfare resistant. So there is Delhi's pollution on. Putin wouldn't be breathing that inside his car.
I can only imagine. But here's the Prime Minister, External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar is with him. That's the close perimeter security that you see right behind the Prime Minister as he arrives. With all the dignitaries, the three service chiefs are also there. Senior officials from embassies, special invitees from political parties, and more will all be there.
And all senior ministers are there for the ceremonial welcome of the president.
The Tri-Services Guard of Honor is right ahead of the guests of honor. The chatter you hear on the camera, in case our viewers are wondering, is you know, these are the media, video journalists and camera persons who are at a slight distance away, so that's them chatting amongst themselves and getting into position before the guests actually arrive. The people you see in your frame are presumably, Gauri, you'd know this better, these look like embassy officials.
Most of them are.
People from embassies and all of them special invitees, obviously, because this is huge. You know, who wouldn't want to be in the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan this morning? You know, with everything that's happened in the last, you know, since February this year when President Trump took over, the incredible, tumultuous year that we've seen so far. And Gauri, you've been lucky enough to have had a ringside view of the climax, I would say, in Tianjin.
Indeed.
You know, this is where everyone wants to be this morning.
Absolutely. This all roads lead right now to this event right now, this venue, and this is something that is being watched and tracked globally. You know, everybody in Trump, whether it's the Oval Office or the 10 Downing Street, everybody wants to know what can happen here. And you know, someone very senior I spoke to yesterday told me that people are trying to find answers to Ukraine war in Kiev, Brussels, and DC. Who knows? The answer probably lies in New Delhi, and that's a fact, because this is where all the world is watching right now, figuring things out and understanding that India right now is negotiating, dealing with all global headwinds on its own terms. I think that is the single biggest thing, on its own terms. We do what's best for us and we engage with everybody on an equal footing. And that's the message that's being sent out to President Trump as well right now, who would definitely want to know what's happening here.
Minister Piyush Goyal, I can see in the crowd there. I can see the Principal Secretary. I can see a few other.
And the Prime Minister over there on your screens right now. This is the ceremonial welcome in the forecourt of Rashtrapati Bhavan. This is what is given to heads of state. It's a very formal ceremony. There'll be a Tri-Services Sword Guard of Honor. We'll see the Russian President walk past the Tri-Services Assembly of soldiers from the Army, Air Force and Navy. He'll be taking the salute. The anthems will play. He'll be meeting several of the dignitaries, other people assembled over here. And later on, of course, he returns to Rashtrapati Bhavan this evening and he flies out of there this evening after his banquet with the President. These are live images coming in from Rashtrapati Bhavan right now. After this is the all-important summit that takes place in the Hyderabad House. That's just a short distance away. Just about less than 5 minutes away from this particular location.
From here they go to Rajghat, right, Vishnu?
Yeah, I think you're quite right. So they go to Rajghat, and then after Rajghat they go to Hyderabad House, and then later on to Bharat Mandapam. That should be approximately 3 p.m. or so by the time they get over there before the evening sort of occasion, as it were. So this is a very formal event, but this is the start of the visit. This is the official start of the visit. We've been talking about it since yesterday. That was just his arrival. But once his guard of honor is presented is when it officially begins.
So we've got Aditya Raj Kaul and Vasudha joining us live from Hyderabad House. We also have Gulzeen Wagma, Center for Iranian Studies, live with us, along with Ambassador Shashank, our former Foreign Secretary, Rajouri Siddharth Jayaprakash, Junior Fellow at the Observer Research Foundation, all live with us. But I want to go across to our colleagues first, Vasudha and Aditya. Vasudha, so the Prime Minister already there at Rashtrapati Bhavan. I believe the Russian delegation has also just passed you.
Absolutely. In fact, the Prime Minister's cavalcade passed by around 10:48. And Padmaja, this is the road that leads to Rashtrapati Bhavan. It is just between North Block and South Block. And remember, the whole of Lutyens is being redesigned under Narendra Modi. So this used to be the Prime Minister's office and, of course, the Defence Ministry, MEA. Now everything is being moved out. But this road leads to Rashtrapati Bhavan. There are flags, and look at the security arrangement everywhere. There's been a lot of critical emphasis on the kind of security that's been put in place. At the Rashtrapati Bhavan, of course, there'll be a ceremonial welcome of President Putin. He's on a state visit, so clearly there's going to be, this ceremonial welcome is going to be grand, and that happens with anybody who's on a state visit. And also, this is a privileged relationship that we share with Russia, time tested, and also the time for India to consolidate on this relationship that it has had for several years. He will also be officially introduced to the NSA and his cabinet and the cabinet of Modi's ministers. So several key ministers have also been called to the Rashtrapati Bhavan today. And then, of course, the formal reception will take place of President Putin by the head of state, which is President Murmu, and head of the government, which is the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And from here, of course, he goes to Rajghat, which has become a pilgrim spot of sorts for all international delegates, symbolizing the greatest gift that India has given to the world, Mahatma Gandhi and his principles. And then Hyderabad House,
about peace.
4 important things, a pact on mobility. A pact on mobility and a pact that will identify areas of cooperation is what I've been told.
Absolutely. What better time than now, symbolic, when he will be laying the wreath at Rajghat. Aditya, there are about 15 MOUs and about 10 odd pacts that are likely to take place. We've spoken about energy, but the Labour Mobility Pact also focus on fertilizers that is so important for India. Those could be some of the areas that the two leaders will focus on. The summit has officially begun. The visuals are on our screen. Walk us through what could be the big highlights of the summit level meeting that will take place soon.
Well, that's right. NDTV is reporting right now from outside the Hyderabad House, where the official summit will be beginning in an hour from now. But right now, the focus entirely on Rashtrapati Bhavan, where officially the trip of President Putin will be beginning with a ceremonial welcome by the Indian government. And President would-be Prime Minister, who has already reached there, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, and several key ministers, including the Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal. Because trade, defense, and the diplomacy between Moscow and New Delhi is of paramount importance. And that's why when Modi and Putin meet later today at the Hyderabad House, the top India also discuss global issues, including the current war that has been just ongoing for